This is petty billionaire Logan Paul, and he has scammed his fans. That is correct, this man has stolen literally millions from his fan base through Cryptozoo. And then when CoffeeZilla called him out, Logan decided, as a petty billionaire, to make Coffee's life miserable and sue him. So, we're going to be talking about that today, but first, I want to go ahead and cover Prime. You see, Logan's plan to become this petty billionaire was by creating a Gatorade competitor. Prime, I'm sure you've all heard of it by now. As you can see, Prime profits have fallen by over 90% and sales continue to plummet. The company has since gone into, how you could say, a panic. They are strategically trying to come up with a new way to sell more Prime, as the hype beast model is failing them. And it turns out your product actually has to be good if you want to continue to sell more of it. You can't simply slap your famous face on it and expect that to forever drive sales, because once people realize that your product is bad, you end up on clearance shelves. Now, how bad is it really? Well, if you want an idea of the numbers, year over year, Prime has lost 112.2 million euros in revenue, down 70.7% to just 32.8 million. Now, you need to take into consideration their operating costs. You see, revenue is not profit. You have expenses. Prime is barely even profitable anymore. Their profits this year went from 3.72 million last year, which was already down and bad, to just 312,393 euros, down 91.6%. Oh, the tragedy. Now, is their product really that bad? Maybe you, like a lot of normal people, haven't had the pleasure, or displeasure I should say, of tasting Prime. Well, if the product was good, I guess they wouldn't be failing, but let's just find out what Gordon Ramsay has to say about Prime.
At the moment, the sports drink Prime, which was launched by the YouTubers Logan Paul and KSI.
Yes. Okay.
Everyone's
it's a
talking about it.
Drink.
Oh, really?
It is sold out everywhere.
That was 20 quid for that one bottle.
For clarification, I think that this was at the time when people were purchasing up Prime on the hype and then scalping the prices and selling it for massive upmarks, so that's probably why.
But
just that, yeah.
20 quid.
It's meant to be 2 quid.
20 quid.
We want you to give it a go.
We want you to give it
See
a
what you think
review.
of
Prime. Okay, so smells a bit high.
What is that flavour you got there?
Tropical punch, it says.
Oh, Jesus.
Loosely. You've just come from the Maldives. How tropical
it's
is
like
that?
swallowing perfume. What is that?
I don't think swallowing perfume is a great review of your product. Last I checked, perfume is not a consumable product. Anyway, let's see what else he has to say.
I'll send it to Nigella to cook her pork ribs in.
Do you remember those penny sweets, fruit salads?
Yes.
I'm getting liquidized fruit salads.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to try that.
Bit sweet, that. Bit sweet.
Would you serve that at the...
That's also a very common critique of this drink. It is like drinking pure sugar to the point, apparently it tastes like drinking acid. Imagine if you took, say, I've never actually personally purchased Prime to find out, so I can't speak on this, but from the descriptions I've heard from people, it essentially is like if you took a crap load of sugar, mixed it into like Kool-Aid or something, but way too much. You know, if you know, some people really like a lot of sugar in their Kool-Aid, but I'm talking like 90% sugar Kool-Aid or something, and you just crammed it full of it, that's what it tastes like. It's basically just a bunch of sucralose.
Savoy, what would your sommelier make of that?
I'd get fired. Can you imagine giving that to a French sommelier? Opening that, first of all. Here we go.
It tastes of, for me, you know when you have an ice pop when you were little and you used to love just the watery bit?
Well, so out of 10, what are you going to give Prime?
Yeah, it's like the sort of dregs of a sort of Gina D'Acampo tiramisu. You know, the little runny bits at the end. What would I give it out of 10? Zero.
Oh, that is not a very good review, my guys. That is not a very good review. I am so saddened that Gordon hates Prime. However, that is not all that's going on today. You see, More Pegasus recently uploaded a video about Logan Paul and the court documents, as it seems he's making the Cryptozoo victims' life difficult, because if they want to testify in this court case that he's going up against CoffeeZilla in, they actually have to now pay the expenses, apparently, and fly out to America, to Texas, to testify. So now these people who likely don't have the money to do this because Logan took tons of money from them have to show up in a courtroom in America, which they would have to get a travel visa for, to testify. They can't simply do Zoom or anything like that because Logan's lawyers are fighting it. So, with that said, we're going to go ahead and dive into this video. But before we do, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. We need to up those numbers, boys and girls.
Let's up those numbers!
Let's go ahead and get into the video.
Okay, we gotta talk about the Logan Paul situation. So apparently Logan Paul has been trying to bully the Cryptozoo victims after scamming them by making them pay for flights they can't afford. He's also been trying to bury other people involved in tons of legal work in order to make them quit. His lawyers are somehow sabotaging him by making horrible arguments to the court and potentially working in CoffeeZilla's favor. Prime is completely failing as a company with record low revenue, and Logan is panicking.
Yeah, we just covered that. Like I said, it's very hard to have a successful company when your company is selling a product that nobody wants. If they were to maybe go and make Prime taste good and not like pure sugar, then it would probably do a little better. Would it succeed? I don't know. Logan's got a lot of bad press behind him at this point, so it's difficult to say. I'm amazed that they were able to hype the product up as much as they were able to. And by the way, whatever happened to Lunchly? Wasn't that a thing that Mr. Beast and Logan Paul and KSI were working on? I haven't seen that in forever. I haven't even heard anything about it in forever. Is that still a thing? Can anybody let me know in the comments if Lunchly even still exists? Have any of you actually seen it at your local grocery store? Because personally, I don't, purchase that type of product, so I genuinely have no reason to go looking for it. But if it's still there, that would be interesting to hear about, because I have not heard any promotion about Lunchly in forever.
Subscribe or you're reincarnated as Logan's child. You're absolutely cooked.
Oh god, okay, I can't subscribe twice, but I will like the video because I forgot. Guys, you need to start liking creators' videos that you watch, regardless of who it is. If you like the creator, like, comment, interact, all of that stuff. There was an algorithm update that YouTube is making it a lot more difficult for creators to get anywhere because your view likely will not be counted unless you somehow interact with the video. And there's also a new update, which I will be making a dedicated video to soon, essentially a censorship update where YouTube is going to start requiring you guys, the viewers, to put in your ID in some cases or your credit card to prove that you are of a legal age. And this is ridiculous. There is a petition, I believe, that's supposed to rail against this, and it's supposed to stop viewers from seeing inappropriate content if they're underage. However, this is by proxy going to be inflicting damage to the ability of adults to enjoy content, because now you have to give these companies your personal information regardless, like your actual personal information, like your government IDs and stuff like that, just to be able to view certain content. And that is a bit of an overreach. I would argue that trying to see a random person's information when you don't know what they're going to do with that information would be somewhat of a Fourth Amendment violation, at least I would think, in the United States. And definitely a First Amendment violation, because you are censoring people's free speech. People will not be able to make content that these advertisers or these companies deem to be inappropriate and post it without these companies censoring them, essentially, and making it difficult for people to see it. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, that children should be able to see inappropriate content, but I don't think that we should be taking away rights and privileges from adults in order to give these safety measures to children. I feel that big companies should stop trying to be parents and let parents be parents. Anyway, back to the video. I will go ahead also in this video, even though this isn't a dedicated video to the topic, and I will try to find that petition I mentioned. For those of you who want to sign it, it will be down in the video description.
Now, quick recap for people who don't follow the story. A while back, CoffeeZilla exposed Logan Paul for his crypto scams with a very popular YouTube series. And Logan Paul did the logical thing and, instead of just paying back the victims from Cryptozoo, the people that he actually scammed, he decided to sue CoffeeZilla for defamation, insisting that he is not a scammer. Okay, so...
Yeah, because the solution to make your public image look better is take the guy who called you out for being a scammer and then proceed to sue him because he pointed out that you scammed your audience. Makes you look very good. Good job, Logan. This is the PR you needed. This is going to save Prime for sure.
Since then, Logan Paul's scummy text messages also got leaked, basically showing that he was not suing CoffeeZilla because he thought he was defamed, but actually because he's a self-proclaimed petty billionaire.
This is why I called him a petty billionaire at the start of the video. Logan is the one who called himself a petty billionaire. We actually covered that in the last video that we did on Logan Paul. So this isn't new information here. This is just a recap, as he said. All of this can be found in the prior video that I had posted because we covered the video that More Pegasus is talking about in that video. Oh, and by the way, I almost forgot, definitely check out More Pegasus. Link down in the video description. As I mentioned, support your original creators here for this type of content. And yeah, definitely try to make sure that you are giving your support to people you like on the internet, because it seems that the internet is getting very difficult to survive on. I don't know how many of you guys have also heard about the payment processor thing. We'll be covering that as well. I actually have personal experience with that. It's almost as though the entire internet is going to be censored at some point. And honestly, I hate to say it, but this has been a conspiracy theory for a long time, and it's starting to seem the conspiracy theorists were right.
Who just wanted to ruin his life.
Paul also admitted that he's suing him just to make his life difficult. And he says Zilla will pay one way or another. I'll make sure of it. Bro, you're a billionaire. Paul responds with, a petty billionaire. I want people who wronged me to suffer while I continue getting wins on their grave.
Right, so after...
Well, at the moment, I think that most of your ops, Logan, are currently getting a win on the grave of Prime, because that gravestone is going to be placed very soon, it seems. I highly doubt that they are going to come up with a solution to this. It seems Logan's main ideas are, do I grift to this side or the other side? Who do I grift to sell my product? How do I get people in this faction of tribalism to purchase my product so I could continue to sell more of it without actually having to come up with a good product, because that would just be too difficult.
After that, Logan Paul was being investigated by the FBI and the SEC. And that brings us to today, where Logan Paul is trying to bully the victims that he already scammed. Basically, Coffee called on 3 victims of Cryptozoo to give video deposition for the case. But turns out these victims are from Portugal.
Yeah, and for those of you who are not in the know on the Cryptozoo thing, I'm not going to go and explain every single detail of the whole Cryptozoo adventure, if you will, but I will put it out there. There were people that lost like their life savings in this. Like, we're talking like $500,000 and more than one case. Like, this is some serious money some of these people lost, and Logan refuses to pay it back. This petty billionaire, as he calls himself, will not give back the, I believe it was $7 million-ish that he stole from these people. Or at least Cryptozoo stole from these people, which he was the face of Cryptozoo. But he's trying to make the argument, if I'm not misremembering, that he wasn't the one who stole from the people. It was his developers of Cryptozoo that stole from the people. So, do with that what you will, but I personally blame Logan because this was his idea, and he is the one who probably did pocket most of the money, allegedly. I gotta throw that in there because I don't want to be the next person that Logan sues.
In New Zealand, so, they're very far from America and Texas where this case is happening. And Logan obviously knows that he's completely screwed.
Oh, is it New Zealand? I misheard. I thought it was like the UK or something.
And these depositions are not in his favor. Obviously, the victims are going to speak out against Logan Paul, right? So what he's doing here, he's asking them to appear in person and not over video call, because he knows they can't afford the flights to come to the US. Shout out to YouTuber Legal Bites for this info.
Logan Paul was just outed.
I just gotta ask, at what point is the judge going to see these arguments and just throw this case out? Because as we discussed in the last video, For Logan's argument in this case to even work, he would have to have been guilty of fraud and scamming these people to make the argument actually succeed. His lawyers quite literally framed the argument as CoffeeZilla simply trying to boost his reputation. However, for CoffeeZilla to boost his reputation on this, he would have to be correct, meaning that Logan would have to have scammed his audience and have to have essentially admitted to stealing this money from these people in order for CoffeeZilla to look good. Because if it turned out that Logan didn't scam his audience and the SEC investigation went nowhere, well, then that would mean that CoffeeZilla was wrong, and that's going to damage his reputation. So by making this exact argument, Logan has basically admitted to the fact that he scammed his audience to the courts. And I just don't understand how a judge could look at this case and not just immediately throw it out the window. I'm really shocked that it's even made it this far.
Yet again, to be the petty billionaire that so many people out there already think he is. Specifically, it comes up in a motion filed by CoffeeZilla requesting for leave to take video depositions remotely by Zoom.
And this makes sense. Court hearings are held over Zoom all the time. I do not understand why the judge would grant Logan the basically forcing of these people to show up physically in court, knowing that these people live in another country. I can't understand why a judge would do that. And if it happens, oh man, that would just be terrible. But I don't think it's going to. At least I hope it doesn't. But who knows?
Depositions are of 3 Cryptozoo investors, and despite the fact that they apparently live in Portugal and New Zealand, Logan Paul, or more specifically his legal team, is saying, nah, you have to spend cash to fly to Texas to be deposed in person. Logan Paul, or better yet, his legal team, is being...
Guys, just think about this. You've been scammed out of thousands of dollars that you invested in Logan Paul's product. Then you have to show up for deposition in a court proceeding that you aren't even in outside of being a victim to do a deposition for Logan's attorneys that you have to pay for so that he could sue a guy who is advocating for your rights and to get your money back. Make it make sense.
Unreasonable, and it's pointlessly costing CoffeeZilla money by forcing him to file this motion and argue it. And at the end of the day, it's playing right into the narrative that Paul is a bully looking to punish his critics and now re-victimize the alleged victims.
So you're telling me this guy apparently took, I don't know, their life savings and now he still wants to take more?
Yep.
Holy freaking evil psychopath, bro. What kind of a person does this? So obviously the
A guy with literal holes in his brain, according to him, and a sociopath, also according to him. That is the type of guy that would do this.
victims can't afford these flights, so Coffee will be forced to pay the expenses on their behalf, and essentially that's what Logan is trying to do. He's trying to milk Coffee for as much money as humanly possible and essentially bleed him out dry so everybody knows in the future never...
Wait, he's trying to get Coffee to cover this? I thought he was trying to get the victims to cover this. That's insane. So he's literally just trying to bleed Coffee for more money. That's wild, dude. That's actually wild.
Never step to petty billionaire Logan Paul because he's gonna make this court case go on for years and years.
I said this in my last video, but honestly, Logan Paul's hair really does look like a pack of ramen noodles.
And essentially bully you with his money. And I don't think anybody is surprised
A sweaty pack of ramen noodles.
that Logan is being this massive scumbag. But it's just funny after he apparently apologized to the victims as well and says he, like, you know, cares about them. He wants to pay them back or whatever.
Bro, you filmed and posted a body. I'm sure we all remember the forest incident in Japan. I don't think this guy cares about anything other than his finances.
Whatever, but behind the scenes he's doing this shit. So after this, she talks about why Logan is actually doing this.
Okay, so on July 23rd, CoffeeZilla filed his motion for leave to take videotape depositions of Duarte Campos de Oliveira, Martin Campos de Oliveira, and Kira Ann Cree. And he started out by saying that he had noticed the depositions of 3 Cryptozoo investors, which CoffeeZilla, of course, calls victims. He says he noticed them to appear via Zoom video conference since 2 of them live in Portugal and 1 lives in New Zealand. And of course, this lawsuit is all happening in Texas in the United States.
Okay, so they have to come from multiple countries then? It's more than one country. Portugal and New Zealand, they would have to show up, these 3 people, to testify on behalf of Coffee in a deposition for Logan, which Logan is trying to financially hurt Coffee with. As if this entire court case wasn't just designed to financially hurt Coffee. I just cannot believe it's even gotten this far. The court systems in this country are very slow. So this still could get thrown out at some point. However, I'm just shocked that this made it past the opening of the case. I'm shocked that the judge didn't look at this and think there was just no standing here. I don't even know how we got here.
Despite the fact that they're non-parties to this lawsuit, they apparently agreed to appear at depositions via Zoom, which means they're not making CoffeeZilla serve them with subpoenas.
Plus, the entire basis of this case is defamation, which is extremely hard to prove. So, I mean, Logan really has a very much uphill battle here, and he knows this. But the fact that a rich guy like this can take his money and just bully anybody that he wants to because he's richer than you is definitely a massive flaw in the U.S. court system. And that does need, at some point, I think, to be addressed. This is not just my opinion. I've heard a lot of lawyers have this opinion that the U.S. court system is very financially biased, because it is. The better and more attorneys that you can afford, the better your odds of winning cases is. So I'm not at all surprised that Logan is able to do this, but that doesn't make it right.
Instead, they're cooperating. And then he says Paul does not oppose the depositions occurring, but opposes them being conducted by remote means.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason that they need to be remote. There's no reason these people should have to fly over an ocean or whatever to come and testify in Texas. It does not make sense.
In what appears to be an ongoing pattern, Paul wants to punish his critics by forcing them to incur international travel expenses simply to tell their story. But Paul has no legitimate basis to oppose the relief sought. Now, CoffeeZilla says the testimony of these witnesses is important to this case because it goes to the element of defamation, where Paul needs to show that the statement CoffeeZilla made was a false statement of fact.
Yeah, I don't care what anybody says. Logan Paul gotta be like top 10 anime villains, bruh. Ain't no way this fucking financial dementor is still trying to
Bro, Frieza's out here taking notes from this man.
suck away even more money from his victims. So it wasn't enough to actually do a crypto scam and all this shady bullshit. Now you're making sure they will never oppose you again because you're an actual supervillain abusing your power here. And the funniest part is he's not even arguing that they shouldn't give a deposition, right? If you didn't know, a deposition is basically like giving testimony, but it's like before the trial.
Yeah, but that's not quite all it is. For those of you who don't know or have never done a deposition, you're not only giving your testimony to the court, but what a deposition usually entails is you sit down while the opposing attorney, you also have your attorney there, but the opposing attorney essentially sits there and questions you for however long he wants or that the court allows, and until he runs out of questions. And he will sit there and try to trip you up and get you to say things, essentially whether you mean them or not. So basically, say you sit down and they ask you a bunch of questions. The intended goal of these questions is to get you to slip up and essentially admit that you don't have a case here. Usually, in Logan's case, it would be to cripple CoffeeZilla's defense by obliterating these people. Now, this could also go positively in Coffee's direction. It really comes down to how the person being deposed actually performs in the deposition. So, this could be a positive for Coffee if they take place, or Logan's super expensive lawyers could potentially turn this into a nightmare. It could go either way. It just comes down to whether or not those lawyers can trip up and break these victims of Logan's little scheme.
So he's just trying to make it as annoying as humanly possible. And obviously that's why this court case has been taking over a year. And some lawyers are speculating that it's going to take even more years now, potentially 2 more years. So Logan is literally going to
as I said, U.S. court systems are super slow.
Stretch this out as long as humanly possible. So this next part, she talks about the victims and how they actually declared on paper that they are victims of Logan and they can't actually afford these flights at all.
Forcing the non-party victims to travel from Portugal and New Zealand to Texas for their depositions would result in undue burden and expense, which is good cause for the court granting leave for them to appear remotely. They do not have the means to travel or miss work for travel and deposition time. And CoffeeZilla also attaches declarations from both Dethwar.
Yeah, because unlike Logan, these people who were already crippled financially by Logan probably don't make millions of dollars a year and are able to simply up and leave their life for a few days for a petty court case at a whim. Most people don't have the money for that sort of thing. It's almost an unplanned, it's not really vacation, at least I wouldn't consider this that, but you know, it's essentially just a massive unplanned expense that these people definitely cannot afford.
Duarte and Martin Campos de Oliveira. And in these declarations, they both say that in order to be at a deposition in Texas in person, they would need to travel like 5,000 miles, which would take like 30 hours of travel time. And this would also cost each of them around $1,200 round trip and take them away from work, which they say they simply can't afford.
Yeah, so instead of just paying the outright expenses that they would have to pay to come and do these depositions, they also have to miss work and lose out on a paycheck because of this deposition. Dude, Logan is a actual diabolical villain. This dude, man, how is there anybody left that supports this guy? I can't imagine there is, but if there is, my God, these people need to get their heads checked, dude.
I would venture to guess that after losing money to Paul's project, it probably sucks to then be told that Paul is trying to make them pay thousands of dollars to tell their story in a lawsuit between people that don't even involve you. And yeah, it's entirely possible that these individuals actually really do need to work,
Yeah, that's the crazy part about this lawsuit. This lawsuit really isn't even about them. This is just giving testimony to help CoffeeZilla's case, because CoffeeZilla has to show evidence that what he did was not defamation, because Logan actually did steal from these people. So that's why they need to show up to argue the case that, yeah, Logan robbed us. However, Logan is trying to make this as difficult as possible because he knows that if they show up and they do well in the depositions, it could completely throw this case out, and Logan would be, as some would like to call, a vexatious litigant, which he is.
given their alleged financial losses in this case.
In my opinion.
Of course they need to work. Most people need to work, and they are not multi-millionaires, potentially billionaires like Logan. And obviously, after losing a significant amount of money through the Cryptozoo scam, it just made it 10 times worse. Obviously, a bunch of people say, well, you shouldn't have been stupid and, invested in this, but what's done is done.
I mean, yeah, let's be real. You shouldn't invest in anything that any influencer tells you to invest in. I would hope at this point that lessons have been learned. People have seen what happens when you purchase things, especially crypto-related things, from any influencer, because it never ends well. And hopefully this sort of thing does not continue to happen into the future. I feel really bad for all of these people, because I can only imagine what it must be like to just lose all of your money. I mean, granted, yeah, it was dumb. They shouldn't have put their money into it in the first place. And when it comes to any sort of investment, regardless of who's pushing it to you, you should not invest more than you're willing to lose or able to afford to lose. That's finance 101. However, it still hurts to see these people are suffering now because Logan pushed this product onto them.
And at this point, they just need justice. You need to pay back the victims, because they did it thinking that, they might have had a chance, or, trusting in Logan's reputation as a famous person, I guess. And here we have the declaration by Martin de Oliveira. I'm over the age of 18, of sound mind, competent to make this declaration. I would and could competently testify on these facts if I'm called as a witness. I am a victim of Logan Paul's Cryptozoo scam. I'm willing to testify in this case without a subpoena, so they're cooperating and stuff. I live in Portugal, and this is obviously the important part. Portugal is, super far.
Oh my god, almost 5,000 miles away from San Antonio, Texas. I mean, Portugal is South America. It's not anywhere near Texas. But yeah, Texas would cost at least $1,200 round trip and would require more than 30 hours travel time. That's crazy. And like $1,200 to the normal person, that's like a rent payment, dude, for a lot of normal people, or at least pretty close. Maybe not quite, but it depends on where you live. But it's definitely up there. Most people don't have $1,200 to just throw away like this for something that isn't even their court case. This is not even a case that they themselves are involved in outside of giving testimony against Logan. Man, this is wild.
From Texas, and it would take $1,200 round trip, more than 30 hours of travel time. Also had to take time away from work, which he cannot afford to do.
And this is after Logan took thousands from them on top of it. That's what makes it even worse. It's like throwing salt into an already massive bleeding wound.
For to purchase a flight to San Antonio, Texas from Portugal, and for lodging accommodations to attend an in-person deposition, willing and available to testify via Zoom. Also prepared to share documentation at the Zoom deposition to verify my identity. Right, so obviously Logan wants them to spend thousands of dollars to go to Texas. Not to mention, this is not the only problem, because they're gonna have to give about 8 hours of deposition. And
guys, there's absolutely no reason that this deposition cannot take place over Zoom. I've done a Zoom deposition for a court case that I'm not going to get into details on, but I've done them. There's absolutely zero reason that you cannot do this over Zoom. This is actually just Logan trying to bleed coffee in these people for as much as he possibly can. There's no other way to explain it.
And they have to give it to each side, right? To each of the lawyers on both sides. So it's basically like 16 hours of wasted time, even once you go there. And that's not...
Also, I really hope that Coffee gets his lawyers to prepare these people extremely well before the deposition. Most people are not prepared for depositions. It's not something that most people have experience with. And I can only imagine if these people are from foreign countries, that it's going to be even more difficult for them, because there's going to be customs differences and all that sort of stuff. I imagine, I would think that Portuguese would be the language that the guy from Portugal speaks, but I could be right. He could also speak English. I don't know. But let's just say he speaks perfect English. Even then, the guy's not going to have a strong understanding of the U.S. court systems. At least I would assume. That's not a guarantee. Maybe for some reason he does. I don't know. Maybe the guy sits around and reads court books all day about their U.S. law books. I don't know. I doubt it, though. So I highly doubt he's going to have an understanding of what the U.S. legal system is actually like. So he's already at a massive disadvantage when it comes to this deposition. Same with the guy from New Zealand. So Coffee's lawyers are going to have to seriously prepare this guy, or actually these guys. And these lawyers for Coffee are going to have to rigorously tell them what to expect, give them lists of possible questions, how to respond to those questions, which they probably will, but they're going to have to go extra hard at this, or this deposition could turn into a nightmare.
Including time you're just waiting for the court to take place and the proceedings to take place, right? And obviously he mentioned the accommodation cost as well. You're gonna probably have to buy a hotel or something because they likely don't have relatives in the US or whatever. Essentially, it's a lot of wasted time, a lot of lost money, from time they could be spending working, time away from the family, etc., etc. And essentially, they have to put their life on pause for this lawsuit, right?
And they have absolutely zero way to recoup the losses for a lawsuit that they're not even going to get anything out of when it ends. All that this would result in, at best, is the lawsuit getting thrown out against Coffee. That's it. And if it gets thrown out, maybe Coffee can turn around and try to countersue. That's the best that there'll be out of this. And that would also take years if Coffee went that route. But as it currently stands, that's the absolute best that could happen, is the lawsuit just gets thrown out. Nobody would get any kind of money. Maybe Logan, maybe Coffee could try to argue for legal fees or something if the lawsuit gets dismissed for Logan wasting everybody's time, but I doubt it. Most likely the lawsuit's just going to get tossed.
And after they are already victims and lost a shit ton of money that they're attempting to make back by working. And Logan knows all of this, obviously, and he knows that a video deposition would make absolutely no difference, right? And the only reason
No, it wouldn't. There's absolutely no reason that you can't ask the same questions over a video call. No reason whatsoever. That's it. The court writer can hear the answers just as well. They could transcript everything just as well. The judge can hear everything. There's no reason. The lawyers asking the questions can hear it all. There's absolutely no reason. The same questions could be asked over Zoom.
You would need them there physically is to potentially verify their identity, but it's pretty...
Hold up an ID card. I don't know. There's other ways. They could prove it. Just send government ID to the court. If that's what you're trying to do, just do that. There's no reason for this.
Obvious you could do that through video means at this point. You know, just pull up your ID, send over some documents, etc., etc.
If a website can ask for your ID and that's good enough to verify to look at, you know, inappropriate content online, and this is becoming a thing, that's good enough for these crazy monopolies. There's no reason that the court couldn't do the same thing. Not saying that these companies should be doing that, because they definitely shouldn't be. But if they have the ability to verify this stuff through that type of thing, there's no reason the courts can't.
Etc. You know, AI is not advanced enough at this point to, you know, perfectly replicate some dude and, you know, perfectly respond. So this next part, Coffee actually anticipates Logan's arguments and tries to counteract them beforehand. And you can see that Coffee is basically trying to do anything to make this whole thing speed up because, you know, this is just bleeding him dry constantly, more and more expenses.
First, he's...
Yeah, I don't blame him. You would want the lawsuit to be over with and thrown out as quickly as possible, because the quicker it's over with, the less money you'll spend. And obviously, Coffee does not have Logan Paul levels of money. I mean, Coffee, don't get me wrong, he probably makes decent money from his channel, but Logan Paul makes way more money than your average content creator. I mean, Logan Paul is currently sitting at another level of income that most of us will never even be able to come close to. That is the type of wall that Coffee is up against. A massively rich guy who wants to put him under.
He says he thinks Paul will argue that by doing these depositions remotely, they won't be able to verify the identity of these witnesses. And second, he says Paul will likely argue that he wants to pressure test the truth of whatever testimony they give, and that they won't be able to do that if the deposition is done remotely. But as to the first argument...
What? Yes, they will. There is absolutely no reason they can't. They can absolutely verify the identities and sit there and pressure test the witnesses over Zoom. There's no difference. No difference between if this person is sitting in front of you or over a video call. You can ask the same questions. This argument doesn't even make sense.
CoffeeZilla says the witnesses have already agreed to show documentation verifying their identity, just like it would happen in any in-person deposition. And as for the second argument, courts reject this kind of argument because it essentially would result in repealing the rule allowing any remote depositions. And interestingly, CoffeeZilla also points out in a footnote that the parties have already agreed to do a number of depositions remotely in this case, to include both sides' experts and a Cryptozoo investor that Paul had selected to depose. So really, like I said...
Wait, Logan Paul actually wants to depose a Cryptozoo investor? I would love to know which investor this was. Was this like an insider that made some money off of this somehow? Because everybody else, for the most part, as far as I know, lost money. So why is Logan specifically choosing a Cryptozoo investor to depose? That's interesting. I want to know more info on that, but I'm sure people are probably going to brush over this. But I think that's very important. I would like to know who this person Logan wants to depose is, because this person, I would like to know how they would have even made a profit or anything like that, if that's the case, because I can't imagine that somebody who lost a bunch of money is going to be willing to come to Logan's defense.
This should be an easy dispute to resolve without emotion like this, and Logan is instead playing into the petty billionaire narrative here.
I mean, it's no longer a narrative at this point. It is just the truth. He is exploiting his massive amounts of wealth here to bleed the victims dry and get points on CoffeeZilla. He just wants to further disparage any victims from coming out. And it's basically a warning sign to anyone opposing Logan Paul, right? Even if you sue him, even if you are in the right, even if you actually have a good, case, open and shut case, he will still make it take years. He will still bleed you dry. He will still inconvenience the absolute hell out of you. Do anything he can to, make this more arduous for you. So essentially the message is, don't sue Logan Paul. Doesn't matter if he scammed you. I'm Logan Paul. I can do anything. I'm rich and I will get away with it.
Well, The message is you shouldn't even say anything about Logan Paul, not don't sue Logan Paul, because Logan Paul is the one suing Coffee. So this is quite literally not just a message of don't sue me, it's more a message of don't even open your mouth if I robbed you. That's what this message is, in my opinion.
That's what he's trying to say here. Also, this guy is so pathetic. He actually already agreed to do a video deposition involving someone else in the case. But apparently these brothers who actually are the victims, right? The main part of the case, apparently they are not allowed to do the deposition, right? They have to actually come in person. Logan really just wants to see their toenails, actually. He's just a big fan of their toes. He just needs to see a good visual. Obviously, it's very important to the case. Yeah.
Yeah, gotta get a good look at their faces up close and personal so I can really tell if they're telling the truth. Maybe we should strap a polygraph test to them. Yeah, you can't hold up a polygraph in court, but you know what? Let's just go ahead and hook them up to it. We gotta add that extra stress so we can break them easier.
Yes. Then she talks about the impact this whole situation will have.
The reason I say that, I know most people in the audience haven't ever probably been hooked up to a polygraph before, but when you're hooked up to that machine, it's actually artificially helps raise your stress levels because you know that you're being monitored. Even if the answers are not reliable, it is still an artificial form of anxiety boosting, and that's a problem that the court also has with those machines. And obviously, I'm making this as a joke, but Logan is just trying to abuse the deposition of these people for his own benefit.
On the court of public opinion, right? Because that's very important to Logan Paul's brand.
And Paul's legal team could 100% have just stipulated to these depositions happening remotely, and it looks like instead they chose to force CoffeeZilla to spend more of his own money to file and argue this motion. And the thing that distinguishes this case from others is that it's not just being fought in the court of law, it's also being fought in the court of public opinion. And this is the kind of fight that just highlights and reinforces the narrative that Logan Paul is a petty billionaire who will bully anyone who crosses him.
I mean,
is there actually still people though that support him in the first place? Isn't like the overarching public opinion of Logan that he's just a scumbag at this point? I mean, at least that's what I've seen. Everything I ever see about Logan is negative now. I haven't seen anything positive about him since like 2016. And even back then, people were critiquing it, but like it was more like, oh, you know, they're the Disney Channel kids or whatever. With the Disney Channel flow. If you guys haven't forgotten about the that was a Jake Paul video, but still, like, you know what I mean. It was usually just critiquing that these guys were essentially handed a lot of what they had, and that these guys were just Disney Channel kids. That used to be what it was. Nowadays, it's like these guys have done so much wrong, mainly Logan, that it's almost impossible to find a piece of positive press. So I don't even know where exactly the positive opinion comes from on these people. Like, I could see maybe with KSI because he kept up posting to YouTube for so long, but Logan hasn't really been consistently posting on YouTube in forever. I know he's part of like the WWE roster now or something, but I just don't know where the positive feelings for Logan is coming from. I just don't understand it.
Logan Paul's reputation is so far in the gutter. I think a fucking sewer rat would be held in higher regard. And the court of public opinion absolutely does matter because that is where Logan Paul is making majority of his income, right?
Yeah, it's all hype. People need to like him or he can't make money. If everybody dislikes him, then he can't make any money. South Park quite literally predicted Prime being just a hype product, and now we're seeing the downfall of Prime. Logan's entire brand is just Logan's hype. That's all it is.
It still rests on people actually like him. And I know we think that most people actually don't like him, but he still has this fringe like cult audience or something, maybe a bunch of kids who don't really care about what's going on here. But
I guess that makes sense. I guess it could just be a bunch of children. That would make sense. Kids who don't understand the legal system or financial stuff or, you know, adult morality, that makes more sense than a lot of adults supporting him. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are still adults out there that think Logan did nothing wrong.
Even that audience is sort of growing up at this point, and I feel like if enough people know about this, if enough people actually bring attention to the fact that this is the type of person he is, you wouldn't even need to, you know, make the kids aware of the situation. It's, you know, straight up just going after the brands and the sponsors, because that's kind of what happened when Logan had his whole suicide forest incident, or
I brought that up earlier, yes, that this was the start, I think, of, I mean, Logan was already viewed pretty negatively because he would cause problems for, like, his neighbors, and he would cause problems in public. Basically, like, the OG type of nuisance streamer. That is kind of what Logan was. However, this was, like, really the big diving board, I think, that Logan initially took a nosedive from. And then his career has just been, like, up and down from here. I mean, one of his most viewed videos is quite literally the apology to this incident, where he is fake crying about what happened. So, in all honesty, Logan's career has been cooked for a while. It's just coming to the point where we finally festered this thing to a head, and it's about to burst.
Or any of these other scandals, essentially the brands would distance themselves from him, and then Logan would lose millions of dollars, which is exactly what he doesn't actually want happening. You could have just forked over just a few $1 million to the victims, but
yeah, he wouldn't even I mean, maybe he would because Prime's going under. But at the time when this all happened, because it's been a while now, Logan would not have felt that. He could have given out that $7 million right back to the people that lost money in Cryptozoo. Would have been no problem for him. But he instead decided that his name and his ego was more important. When quite literally, if he had just given the money back, it would have been really good PR for him. It would have been like, oh, Logan actually, yeah, it didn't look good, the CoffeeZilla, to call you out, but at least you decided to come around and try to make it right. People would have actually been behind you for that. But instead, you decided to turn around and file lawsuits and attack people. That is the opposite response that people wanted to see. And this is why your name is being dragged through the mud and Prime is failing now.
But instead, he chose to go down this path.
Well, that and Prime is also apparently a not so great product, according to a lot of people. I personally can't really say whether I like it or not, but Gordon Ramsay doesn't.
Path of just antagonizing his enemies as much as possible, just sort of excruciatingly making the process as painful as possible.
I just want to clarify, the reason that I can't say that is because I would never put something as poisonous as Prime in my body.
For the victims. And it was this next part, Logan.
In my opinion, it's poisonous. That's not meaning it actually is. Obviously, you're not gonna have issues or whatever, but there was issues apparently pointed out about forever chemicals in Prime. So I guess maybe that argument will be made at some point.
Logan Paul ends up being a massive pain in the ass again. So if it wasn't enough to have these victims sort of fly out to do this deposition, he's now going after the guy in the class action case as well. He's essentially having him produce a ton of documents in essentially discovery or whatever. And this is essentially going to be a very long and arduous process. And I don't know if it's exactly legally necessary, but you know sure as hell Logan Paul is going to use every avenue to just bully these people as much as possible.
And somehow it gets even worse because there is a guy called Don Holland and he is leading the class action lawsuit against Cryptozoo, and Logan Paul is now dragging this guy into the defamation lawsuit, and now he's not.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I'm glad somebody filed a class action against him, but still, of course, Logan would find a way to make things difficult by dragging him into a lawsuit that he has nothing to do with, of course.
Not suing him personally, but he wants his deposition and he wants him to produce a bunch of documents, except it is a bunch of documents. And when you have to answer to discovery, this takes a lot of time out of your life. I was watching this channel that said he was asked for discovery and he basically had to spend 3 to 4 weeks nonstop taking 7,000 screenshots from emails and text messages that he sent to other people. So this can be very taxing on someone's life. Obviously, they said no, and this is what Logan Paul had to say. Through his counsel, Holland objected to the subpoena in its entirety, refused to produce any responsive documents, and subsequently ignored multiple good faith attempts by Paul's counsel to meet and confer. There being no legitimate basis for Holland to resist compliance with Paul's subpoena, Holland should be ordered to promptly produce responsive materials.
I mean, I would think that that there would be an argument here that this is not a case that they even have anything to do with. I mean, it does involve Cryptozoo, but at the same time, Logan seems like anybody that had anything to do with Cryptozoo, he's just going to drag them into this. So if you were damaged by Logan, it seems that he will go out of his way, if you try to do anything about it, to damage you even further. This is just sad, man. It's really sad that this sort of thing can just happen. I mean, I know companies do this to people all the time, especially when these companies are in the wrong and they did something bad to people. But the fact that Logan has the money and ability to just do this to anybody that he wants to, who tries to recoup money that he stole from them allegedly, well, that says a lot about how the justice system is currently functioning. That's my thoughts anyway. I think that we need to rework this, because if you could just abuse the civil courts to this degree just because you're rich, clearly something somewhere went wrong when we set up the court system, at least the civil courts anyway. Obviously there's issues with criminal court and everything else too, but when it comes to this, you can't even recoup money that you had stolen from you by this already rich individual. That must hurt these investors so bad. I can only imagine the pain and anxiety these people must be feeling from this.
And this is his end goal. He's trying to make it as expensive and as annoying as possible to be in litigation with him, so that the next time someone wants to speak up against him and say, hey, I lost money because of Logan Paul, they're going to be
Also, this is a great picture of Logan. I think they got his good side here.
dissuaded, because they don't want to get involved in these lengthy legal battles where obviously he has a shit ton amount of money. He has basically endless funds to fight this, so all his lawyers can just bury the people in depositions, in discovery, and it's just showing that he has no remorse whatsoever for what he has done. The fact that he's willing to put these poor people through even more.
Are we shocked, though? Are we shocked that self-proclaimed sociopath Logan Paul doesn't have remorse for his actions? Is anybody actually surprised by this? Because I'm not.
Deals just so that they can testify in person is really showing a lack of empathy and any type of remorse whatsoever.
Oh, by the way, yeah, this is, I know you guys, we haven't covered this, but for those of you who don't know, this is KSI's current forehead size. He is currently trying to expand his forehead to build an airport there, so that he could make up for his losses in Prime by landing airplanes on his forehead.
No way, guys. You're telling me the
That was a joke, by the way, for those of you who don't understand sarcasm.
Sociopath who literally filmed a dead body and put it on YouTube for views actually doesn't have empathy. Shocking. Absolutely shocking information. Nobody could have guessed. I think he needs to go back to school and take some iDubbbz classes on empathy. But keep in mind, he hasn't reached
32!
The ripe age of 32, so he won't be able to process those emotions yet. But yeah, the court process is an absolute nightmare here, and it's essentially really bad for the people who are even in the winning side of things. If, like, as one of the lawyers said that we were covering before, if you end up going to court, you have already lost, right? Most, like 97% of cases end in, like, settlements or something, so if it
Yeah, it usually ends in a settlement and a lot of lawyer fees, because lawyers do not come cheap, especially good ones.
It ends up going to court, both sides essentially have to spend a lot of time and resources and money, and
yeah, but the difference is that Logan has a lot of money to burn, where the other side doesn't have anywhere near that amount. So, yeah, both sides have to burn money, but one side will definitely feel that burn a lot more than the other.
Yeah, it's just gonna be an absolute headache for everybody involved. And I don't mind, like, scumbags having to deal with the shit, but the fact that some of these people are actually victims and they have to essentially...
This reminds me a lot of... I don't know how many of you watch One Piece. There's a scene in One Piece where Odin stands in the boiling pot while Kaido and Orochi have a timer going for an hour. He's in a pot of hot oil, holding up the 9 samurai retainers. And essentially, after he has stood there in the pot for an hour, Orochi, I forget, was it Orochi or Kaido? One of them then proceeds to unalive Odin. Sorry for the YouTube safe terminology. And this just gives me those vibes, because these people are basically standing already in the fire, and then Logan is essentially Orochi in this situation and just unloading on them while they burn. At least that's kind of how I see it, if that makes any sense. Maybe that's a terrible analogy.
We go through even more harassment from Logan here is just so fucking pathetic. If Paul was able to take money from them through the internet, the victim should be able to testify using the internet. Actual genius. Okay.
Fair point. Fair point.
This is actually like perfect comment here. Literally, the crypto scam was through the internet, man. My God. Yeah. Logan Paul's such a scummy weasel. You better believe he's going to be as slippery as possible in order to try to evade all of this. We have a responsibility to not let people like him get away with these horrible scams that prey on honest, hardworking people. Hey, we're spreading the message here, all right? Anyways, turns out despite the fact that Logan's lawyers are annoying as hell, they are actually somehow ending up helping CoffeeZilla because they are apparently making some dumb arguments here.
Yeah, I brought that up earlier, that some of these arguments quite literally would indicate that Logan Paul is guilty of scamming these people in order for the arguments to make sense. I didn't just come up with that. That is actually the argument that they're making. These expensive attorneys are coming up with some of the actually worst arguments I've ever seen in a court case.
Basically, Coffee actually filed a motion to transfer venue of the lawsuit, right?
Which is why I don't understand how this is actually still even being fought in court and how the judge hasn't just dismissed this yet.
To Austin, essentially, who wanted to link up the defamation case against him with the class action lawsuit against Logan, right? And Logan was essentially denying this whole thing because obviously, sort of joining the two cases or, having the same judge preside over both cases will sort of speed up the process, right? Speed up the legal process.
Wait, he wants to combine the cases. All right, this is the first I'm hearing of that.
And we all know Logan is going to lose this case, so he wants to keep this going as long as humanly possible, right?
Well, yeah, obviously, when your argument is, I'm guilty, Your Honor, of course you're going to lose.
So now what he's doing is he's requesting a bunch of info from Dom Holland, right? And he's implying that the two cases are related, right? So essentially what he's doing is he's counteracting what he said before, that he doesn't want these cases joined, because he's requesting this info, and this info is related from the other case. So he's basically admitting that these cases are actually related. So he's going to have to end up arguing both sides of the case to the judge, and that's just not going to look good.
Logan Paul may have just painted himself into a little bit of a corner in his defamation case against CoffeeZilla. And by that, I mean, he just made an argument to the court that might end up unintentionally helping the other side. Logan Paul recently filed a motion to compel discovery from Don Holland. You'll notice that Holland is not a party to the defamation case against CoffeeZilla. Rather, he's the class representative for the Cryptozoo scam class action lawsuit. And I mean, for example, if Holland has text messages from years ago talking trash about Paul for being an idiot who got himself banished from the entire country of Japan, technically that
Yeah, he did do that. Japan did ban him. I kind of forgot that even happened, but yeah, he got banned by Japan.
that would fit into request number 1 with the way that it's written. And that really would have nothing to do with either of these two lawsuits that we're talking about here.
Oh, I should probably look into that. I didn't hear, this is off topic, but I remember the other day there was like a tsunami warning or something for Japan. I hope that nothing happened there. I haven't heard anything about it, so I assume maybe the tsunamis never came, because I would assume I would have seen something. But yeah, hopefully that didn't happen.
Anyway, Holland has also now filed an opposition to the motion to compel. And in his opposition, Holland basically said, no way, Paul.
Yeah, it would be very bad if that happened. I don't know if you guys remember the 2011 tsunami, but yeah, that was pretty crazy. But I was reading there was something about like a landslide or something that took place in the ocean that might have helped cause that. So if it didn't happen, it makes sense. So I'm hoping it didn't. I should probably look into that after this video. I don't want to speak on it and act like something happened that didn't happen, because if I haven't heard anything, I'm going to assume nothing ever came of it.
Paul's requests are overbroad and unduly burdensome, and here's why. And interestingly, one of the main arguments that Holland makes several times in this filing is he says Paul fails to explain why these documents are somehow relevant not to the class action case, but to CoffeeZilla's defamation case. Paul needs to show that he's not just trying to backdoor his way into evidence he's not allowed to demand yet. And to do that, he needs to show that it's relevant to this case.
Right, so he's basically trying to say that I need all these documents, right? I need all this evidence to prove CoffeeZilla wrong but it's not even related to the CoffeeZilla case. This is from the class action lawsuit, right? Which is an entirely separate case, so which proves that these two cases are closely related, which is what Logan Paul was trying to get away from this entire time, right? So even in all of the bullshit, he can't seem to keep up with all the lies here, right? But essentially what I'm sort of getting from this is that Logan wants this shit to go on forever, right? It be solved as slow as humanly possible.
Well, yeah, that's obviously what his goal is. He knows that he could literally fund this for as long as it takes, and they can't. That's the entire point. Just get them to spend all of their money, and then when they run out of money, they can't defend themselves anymore, so therefore Logan could win the case. Or at the very least, if it gets settled out of court, Logan has successfully managed to bleed them dry. And that is actually just it's disgusting behavior. There's no other way to put it. It's disgusting behavior, but it's legal, unfortunately.
Even though these cases are related, he wants them to be solved in two separate courts, two separate judges. That way it will go on potentially more than 2 years, potentially like 3 to 4 years, right? And that way Logan Paul can, harass the victims even more, maybe ask for more flights here and there. And all this money will be taken from CoffeeZilla, because CoffeeZilla is obviously going to have to pay these people to do the deposition, because he's going to have to pay for the flights and everything like that.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it is a lawsuit against CoffeeZilla and not them. This is a defense for Coffee. So Coffee would have to probably finance this stuff, because these people do not have another motivation to do it on their own, nor do they probably have the finances. So yeah, Coffee would end up having to pay this out. It's wrong. And really, Logan should not be able to force them to do it this way. But that is the goal that Logan has in mind, yes. Make Coffee pay.
And I think this is just a stupid ass rule, by the way. If you want to demand they appear in person, right? I think you should be made to pay it, right? Isn't that like common sense? Am I being stupid here? Because
I mean, you would think that, but that's just not how the legal system works. It just isn't, unfortunately. One side can try to compel the other side to do something, and if the judge agrees with that side, then that other side will have to do it, and there's absolutely no other force here outside of the judge himself that can force one side or the other to have to pay for anything. Either that or a jury at the end of it all can come to a determination of who wins the case, and then they could figure out the damages and all that stuff. But in the end, it all just comes down to who can afford to continue to argue for longer in this case. And even though this case has no bearing, and if, I just want to know how this judge hasn't tossed it, but obviously it hasn't been tossed, so these lawyers must be doing something right for Logan, I guess. But at the end of the day, Logan knows that this is not a case he can win. It's just a case that he could continue to drag out, and that's what he's doing. It's just really sad. And I wish that there was some way that we could, maybe there is, and I just haven't heard of it, but I wish there was some way to help Coffee out here. I definitely feel that these people do not deserve what they're dealing with at all, especially the victims. Obviously, Coffee doesn't deserve it either, but the victims really do not deserve it. They've already been hurt enough. But I just don't know of it. If there is a way, then let me know. Maybe we could figure out a way to promote if they have if maybe Coffee has some sort of GoFundMe or something that I don't know about.
Like, if you are rejecting the video deposition here, what is your reasoning for that?
Not that me being small and whatever would be able to get anywhere near the amount of traction for something like that Logan Paul would get. But honestly, with something like this, if you have the extra money to help, and you want to do something to help these people who have been hurt, obviously, at the end of the day, it's your money, and you're welcome to use it however you want. And if you decide that you want to help these people, then I see no reason, if there is a way to do so, not to help get that in front of people, because Logan is currently making life difficult for these guys. So, at the very least, let the court of public opinion help these people to survive, because that's about all you can do in this case, is try to survive. I don't really know if there's a way for either side to win here. I mean, Coffee does have really good arguments and everything, but if Logan continues to use this strategy of dragging the investors through the mud, I'm not gonna lie, it's a strong strategy, because it eventually, when you run out of money to pay attorneys, you can't fight anymore. So it's definitely a strategy. It's a messed up strategy, but it is a strategy.
Right? Obviously, there's some bullshit lawyer reason, obviously, but I feel like you should be making the expenses there because you're making the request here, right? But anyways, this next part, she continues explaining why it's actually going to be really hard for Logan's lawyers to explain this in a manner that actually makes sense.
So now, in response to Holland's opposition, Paul is being forced to explain to the judge why the information he's trying to get from Holland actually is relevant to the defamation case. Paul is going to need to make this argument to the very same judge who still has yet to make a decision on the motion to transfer venue.
But couldn't you make the same argument from Coffey's side that the SEC and FBI cases are relevant as well to this case, to the defamation case? Couldn't Coffey attempt to make this exact same argument if he hasn't already? I would argue that those investigations and their findings would be relevant here, although I'm sure it would be very difficult to get any results of what they have found into this case because they're probably going to be held under lock and key until, Logan actually has to pay consequences, because I believe they are still investigating him, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I would venture to guess that you could make the same argument, and I would also venture to guess that this argument would be much, much weaker because in Coffey's case, he's citing government agencies. And in Logan's case, he's citing people that he damaged. So I can't understand how this even makes sense.
And so this puts this issue of overlap between these two cases front and center at a time when the judge is probably thinking a bit about this issue already.
Yeah, like if I were Logan, I wouldn't want more people that I hurt to come up into my court case. I mean, I get the perspective of trying to make them spend money, but then there's also the fact of if they manage to show up and make strong arguments, this could damage Logan beyond belief.
And so if I'm Paul's lawyer right now, I'm probably asking myself, how can I make the case with a straight face, no less, that this information from the class...
This is a great depiction of Logan Paul's attorneys currently trying to dance and perform for the judge as the judge comes to a decision. Oh man, this is a freaking clown fiesta, isn't it?
Action representative is relevant to the defamation case, but at the same time that there's really no overlap between these cases. It's silly mental gymnastics in my opinion, and honestly, I don't envy Paul's lawyers in having to figure out that routine.
Yeah, unfortunately for Logan, his signature move of constant bullshitting doesn't seem to be working in court here, and even his lawyers are struggling.
I really wish that I could agree with you, Pegasus, but I gotta be honest with the audience when I say that it's working to the degree that Logan expected it to. Because the fact that, obviously Logan is still in the middle of making this argument, but if it even succeeds at all, like if any of this gets through to where he's able to do this, yes, as I mentioned earlier, this still could potentially hurt Logan, but it's also going to financially hurt the other side, and Logan knows this. That's the only reason. So, in a way, Logan is succeeding a little bit, at least at being a rich petty billionaire.
Struggling to keep up with the fact that they are supposed to somehow win this case while arguing it both ways. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he'll succeed in winning this case. I'm just saying he's succeeding in trying to bleed Coffey and the people he allegedly scammed out of their money. He is succeeding at that.
So anyways, horrible move by Logan here. Literally ended up helping Coffey and essentially proving his point that these two cases should be related and should be litigated in close proximity by the same judge here. And
yeah, there is a lot of back and forth with this. I mean, because this could go either way with these arguments. Because these cases being related could help Coffey, or it could also, in a way, help Logan. It just depends on the angle you look at it from and whose angle is stronger. At least that's the way I see it anyway.
the reason being obviously convenience, because, you know, courts love to save time. If you watch any fucking show ever, well, hurry up. Any TV show ever, the judge is always like, hurry up, you're wasting the time of the court, I just want CoffeeZilla to cross-examine Logan Paul in jury case on TV or streaming. That's what I want. Absolute cinema, dude. I just want live stream trial, even with this whole Ethan Hassan thing. I just want a trial, man. Oh my god, the amount of content would be amazing.
Oh, that would be great. I would 100% follow every moment of that trial if it was public. I would make so many videos on it. That would definitely be, yeah, that would be some very prime coverage if you catch my drift.
Amazing. When is the court going to declare petty billionaire Logan Paul a vexatious litigant with this?
There we go. I've been saying it. 10 long years. Okay, it hasn't been 10 years, but I was saying it. I said it at least at the beginning of this video. He is a vexatious litigant, in my opinion, and the court really should throw this out. Like, I just do not understand what standing he has. This is literally one of the hardest things you could try to prove in a courtroom is defamation. I just don't understand it, because when you read over the arguments that Logan's attorneys are making, they are just so bad. I just don't understand how this has made it as far as it has.
Time wasting and money wasting shenanigans. I hope this BS makes a judge angry for wasting everyone's time and being so petty. I mean, they get real pissed with that shit, so who knows?
I mean, there's still always the chance this just gets thrown out on its face, so we'll see.
Apart from cost, they may not even be allowed entry into the US unless they're citizens. I guess they'd have to get their own visas too as well, right? The extra $250 they need to...
Well, no, actually, I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate, because I feel like if they are subpoenaed by the court for a deposition, if they can show that they have a subpoena, I would think that if they're being forced to show up by a U.S. court system, that they would probably be able to get in to do this. I mean, maybe not. I don't know how the current immigration system is handling this sort of thing specifically, where another country's citizen is being called to testify in a court case in person. You know, it's very different than like an illegal immigrant case where an illegal immigrant's here already and then they're deported. I would say that that is different than somebody who never illegally entered the United States being called for a civil case. I would think that would be handled a little differently, but I could be completely wrong.
To apply for a travel visa, we're so effed as a country. My god, dude. I really think Logan needs to pay that shit. Like, it's just such a weird system.
But yeah, if they have to get a travel visa and stuff, which I would assume probably, then yeah, Logan should have to pay for that, in my opinion. But there's no guarantee that's going to happen. It's probably going to fall on coffee, let's be real.
That he doesn't have to pay that. Anyways, moving on to Prime. Logan Paul and KSI's firstborn child officially was actually not a human, but a bottle of, in my opinion, toxic fucking radioactive waste. So basically, Prime the...
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember. This just reminded me of this. So, oh crap, I knocked somewhere. Whatever. Guys, so there's an episode of SpongeBob, right? Which he just showed. Do you guys remember the kelp episode where it makes you grow fur on your skin? That's kind of like Prime. Not saying that it does that, but you know, you can use your imagination.
Drink, if you didn't know, has been completely failing since it first launched. I will admit the launch was pretty spectacular because, you know, KSI and Logan had these massive fan bases and they essentially pushed this sort of hype beast product. It was promoted by Mr. Beast a bunch and a bunch of other people. So everyone sort of, you know, knew that that hype would be pretty strong at the start, but everybody predicted the downfall, and that's exactly what's happening now.
So it has been 3 years since Logan Paul and KSI launched their hydration beverage Prime, and despite their lightning in a bottle start, the last 2 years have been filled with controversy after controversy.
So I guess we're just going to be covering, with the last part of this video, it's just going to be the Prime downfall that I already covered. Alright, let's see, maybe there's something here I missed.
From alleged forever chemicals in their products.
Yeah, we brought that up.
To countless lawsuits.
Okay, I didn't bring up the lawsuits. Yeah, they've been sued a lot, especially by, I believe it was their manufacturer, because they were not meeting their obligations, if you remember. There were a lot of headlines talking about this a while back, where they were supposed to be doing a certain number, and Logan and KSI were unable to fulfill these numbers with the wholesaler, whatever, manufacturer, whatever you want to call it, and they, yeah, it was a big mess, and it was damaging Prime tremendously.
Beef with the most famous soccer player on the planet, and currently an extreme downfall of Prime sales all over the world.
Yeah, I have seen Prime on clearance at my local Walmart.
Has now diminished to the clearance rack at your local Walmart. We all...
Wow. Okay. Well, that's coincidental.
know that Logan will stop at nothing to promote this product, being seen absolutely every...
Do you guys remember, because he just showed it, that golden bottle of Prime? The golden Prime bottles? Whatever happened with that? Because I know they, like, didn't they melt one down or something, or whatever. What was that? Because weren't they worth like $500,000 or something like that? It was just a big hype beast stunt, but yeah, wasn't there something with that? I don't remember the drama behind that. It's like probably a nothing compared to the rest of this, but I remember there was something to do with the Golden Prime bottle thing.
Everywhere with it, and even using the hype of his wife's pregnancy to indirectly promote it alongside his at the time new product Lunchly, which also coincidentally...
Yeah, which like I said, I have not seen anything about Lunchly in quite a while. If this is still a thing, because the last thing I remember with Lunchly was like the big mold thing, where people were getting moldy cheese and stuff from their Lunchlys because there was like a sealing issue or something, and then Logan was trying to make the argument that it's because they're using real cheese, which doesn't make any sense because you could buy real cheese at the grocery store, and you know it's very rare that there is how should I say, mold that's not supposed to be there on cheese that I can go buy. I can only think of one time where I went to Walmart and bought a store brand bag of mozzarella cheese that had mold in it, and I returned it and got another one out of probably hundreds of bags of cheese that I bought. I like cheese, so I buy it a lot. But yeah, this is not like a normal thing for cheese.
It features a Prime beverage.
And of course, we have our snacks and our energy drink.
Oh, I forgot about this. Yeah, Logan literally like promoting Prime in Lunchly at the birth of his child. That was absolutely insane. Talk about not understanding the moment. Like, bro, your kid should have been what you promoted here. If you really felt the need to stream this or whatever he did, or make a video, whatever, if you felt the need to do this, make your child the focus. Don't make Prime and Lunchly the focus. I mean, I know that, you know, KSI and you had this baby first, but that doesn't mean that your actual baby should be given second fiddle to an energy drink. I mean, come on, man, this is ridiculous.
Other than the greatest meals in the world, Lunchly, of course, we have the turkey, cheese, and cracker stack. Also the Fiesta Nachos, my personal favorite.
Love. Like I'm saying, Prime is going backwards faster than
That was the fakest love I've ever heard in my life, in my opinion.
Megamind's hairline.
Megamind's hairline is diabolical, bro. Holy shit, KSI, man.
Like I said, now I was joking earlier when I said that KSI was investing in an airport on his forehead to land, like, you know, Cessnas and stuff. But he really probably could get a lot of money from Boeing if he considered the idea of installing an actual runway on his forehead. I'm just saying.
And I understand why you wear the bandana, holy shit. Now, but honestly, Logan is such a piece of shit, dude. He's so obsessed with promoting Prime. Obviously, we talked about this in the whole Lunchly saga, that he was promoting it at the birth of his child, literally like putting it on his wife's pregnant belly and shit. It was just the most dystopian shit you could ever think of, and Logan somehow embodied this, right? Obviously, Messi cooked his ass too with the lawsuit. He was beefing with Messi's bodyguard as well, you know, saying that they were gonna fight, but then completely pussied out because that guy's an absolute titan. So anyways, even statistics-wise, it's just not looking good for Prime. Here he talks about the fall in sales and...
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure we covered all this. Yeah, I quite literally just covered this, so I don't think we need to go into any deeper into this. You guys get the idea. We already went over the downfall of Prime. I read these numbers to you in the beginning of the video. Prime is cooked, Logan is cooked, and he's also trying to cook coffee. It's not good, and I would really recommend that you guys, in some way, try to show Coffee some support, because these victims do not deserve this, and neither does Coffee, and I hope that we, as a society, can come together to recognize immorality and attempt to actually correct a wrong that should not be taking place. With that being said, my name is Dethwar. I hope you enjoyed the video. This was more Pegasus. Check out his channel, link down in the video description below, and I will see you guys again in the next one, if there is a next one. Hopefully, this gets thrown out and Logan Paul fails at this lawsuit, but let's be real, that's just not how the world works. Anyway, don't forget, like, share, comment, subscribe. Peace.